Here's what went down Monday, October 6, 2025, on Beyond the Gates when it was one Anita to another. Ted got blocked by Carlton again, and Martin decided it was time to pay the piper. On Beyond the Gates, Anita received an invitation from Jackie Tyree, the impersonator who had officiated Danny and Andre's wedding in Vegas. Anita wanted the Duprees to come see her show. Vernon wasn't interested and held Jackie responsible for not putting a stop to the ceremony when it was obvious how inebriated its participants were. Anita blamed Bill for driving Danny to it, but when Vernon pointed out that Bill had also solved some problems for the family, Anita sussed out that the former senator wanted to call on his ex-son-in-law yet again. Vernon reported that he already had. Bill was in court to try and block Leslie's plan to tear down the existing mansion she'd bought to just annoy the Duprees with months-long construction. Anita felt that even if Bill succeeded, Leslie would still find a way to invade their lives, commenting how Leslie had made her the irresistible request to talk about Barbara, the mother she had never known. Vernon posited that Leslie could become a threat if provoked, and we still have secrets to keep. Martin arrived at that moment. Vernon enjoyed having his grandson under his roof, but he also wished that Martin and Smitty would make up. Anita's rationale was that Martin had been secretive to protect Smitty and the kids, but Martin knew his marriage was in trouble because of choices he had made. He respected that Smitty needed more time, but he wondered how he could make Smitty see him in a new light. When Anita harumphed that it sounded like Smitty was waiting for some grand gesture on Martin's part, a light bulb lit up over Martin's head. The congressman said he was heading back to his office, and as he left, Vernon received a call from Bill. The judge had denied Mr. Hamilton's request for an injunction, meaning Leslie was free to start building her house whenever she wanted. Anita hated the idea, but she felt that the only way to keep an eye on Leslie would be to allow her into their lives. Smitty was amused by Jackie's social media post depicting Anita with the just-married Andre and Danny, but Smitty was less amused when father-in-law Ted sat down at his Orphe Jeans table without being asked. "You're late to the party, Clark Kent," Ted sighed when he revealed that he'd already seen the snap. When Smitty wanted Ted's take on the drunken nuptials, Ted found it ironic that Danny was happily married while he and Smitty were on the brink of divorce. While Smitty wouldn't go so far as to say he and Martin were divorcing, he did tell Ted that he had tried to talk to Nicole about the similarities in their situations, the fact that both Ted and Martin had kept damaging secrets from their spouses. Ted wasn't surprised that Nicole would urge Smitty to forgive Martin. Since Martin was her son, he wished Nicole would cut him slack as well. But he also understood why she couldn't. Smitty was of the opinion that the Duprees were being too hard on Ted. Ted appreciated Smitty's stance, but also felt that Smitty was being unforgiving with Martin. He acknowledged that Martin had lied to Smitty and gaslighted him, but Ted added that Martin had assumed Kenneth was out of their lives, the same way Ted had been able to ignore what he'd done with Leslie because she had been out of the picture. Yet, Ted recognized those secrets had been eating away at their marriages all along. Nicole didn't feel she could trust Ted, he realized, the same way Smitty didn't feel he could trust Martin. Smitty readily admitted he still loved Martin. He was just waiting for some kind of sign that he could have faith in Martin again. Ted reasoned that Martin was probably also waiting for a sign that he could be truthful without risking his marriage, advising Smitty not to sit around hoping for some aha moment. Faith, Ted said, was believing in something one couldn't see. Perhaps it was as simple as Smitty just trusting Martin again. Smitty considered this. Ted regretted how much he'd already lost and didn't want to lose his son-in-law as well. He then headed out for Doug's memorial. Smitty was paying his bill at the diner when Martin came through the door. Martin wanted to talk about their relationship, while he'd said he'd kept the secret about Kenneth to protect their family. He'd additionally come to realize that he'd also done so because he was afraid of how Smitty would view him if the truth came out. Mr. Richardson appreciated Mr. Smith saying he wasn't ashamed of him, but Martin felt that Smitty had lost respect for him. The only way to truly take responsibility, Martin concluded, was for him to turn himself in. Smitty was shocked. Leslie breezed by Eva's place with coffee to see how she was settling in. Eva reminded Leslie that she used to live there before Leslie threw her out. Leslie said she had given Eva the unit to make that action up to her, but Eva suspected that Leslie had a specific reason for visiting. Leslie grabbed a wrapped aluminum tray and announced she was giving it to the Duprees. Eva thought it was mean that Leslie had already gifted Nicole with Ted's stolen tie so Nicole would know Ted had had sex with her. Leslie chalked that up to strategy, But Eva didn't think that Leslie was going to end up with Ted any more than she was going to end up with Tomas. After Leslie deduced that Eva had slept with the man, she wanted details, but Eva wasn't proud of what she'd done and felt that Leslie only saw relationships as a sport. "What's more fun than winning?" Leslie winked. Eva denied that she had been pining over Tomas and stressed that men and women could be friends, despite Leslie's lack of experience in that area. Leslie already had Eva and Tomas married, but Eva declared that she'd probably never see him again. "Have I not taught you anything in all these years?" Leslie asked upon learning that Tomas wanted to be with Kat. Leslie urged Eva to fight for her Latin lover, and when Eva insisted that Tomas had made his friendship-only intentions clear, Leslie continued that Eva shouldn't take such a statement personally. After all, Leslie grinned, Ted had made those same claims even when they'd been together decades earlier. Now Nicole was divorcing Ted, and he was practically Leslie's neighbor. Eva didn't think her mom was living in reality, but Leslie was firm that Ted and Tomas only thought they knew what they wanted. To Miss Thomas, the men were two conflicted peas in a testosterone-filled pod. She said that both Richardson and Navarro had told themselves they wanted to be with a Dupree woman for the prestige. But what they really needed were strong women like Leslie and Eva, respectively. Leslie got a text and dashed out, soon floating into the Dupree mansion and swearing to be a good neighbor, even if the trucks and bulldozers were going to make that difficult. To make up for the inconvenience, Leslie had brought the Duprees a fruitcake. "How apropos," Vernon snarked. Leslie pointed out that she had baked it herself, the previous Christmas. It had been in the freezer since then. When Leslie said her adieus, Anita was tempted to warn her about all the fraudulent contractors who were making their services available, but certainly Leslie had already done her research. Leslie smiled for Anita, but looked less secure as she walked out. Vernon contemplated getting a hazmat team to remove Leslie's fruitcake and wondered how long it would be before construction started across the street. Just then, the beeping of trucks and grinding of bulldozers wafted into the Dupree's living room. A down cat dropped in on a preoccupied Nicole, who was writing a eulogy for Doug. Kat kept thinking of Vanessa and the twins, and mother and daughter also ruminated about Danny's wedding to Andre. Nicole congratulated Kat on the purse launch, but could see Kat was depressed. Kat confided that Tomas had cheated on her, and she conjectured that Nicole had a better understanding of her feelings than anyone. Nicole did fathom Kat's sense of betrayal, though her heart sank when she was told that Tomas had gone to bed with Eva. Nicole thought it hard to believe that Eva could sleep with Kat's boyfriend, but Kat was insistent that she'd been trying to tell everyone for months what Eva was capable of, yet no one would listen. Kat reminded Nicole how Eva had come into their home under false pretenses for the express purpose of helping her mother destroy their family. Nicole judged Eva as being truly remorseful for that, and still didn't think that Eva would have come between Kat and Tomas if they'd been happy. Kat couldn't deny that she and Tomas had hit some bumps, but she didn't want to get into specifics. She would only say that logic dictated she should walk away. When Kat opened up about still loving Tomas, Nicole recommended that her daughter work on whatever the issues were that would allow the two to stay together. If it was that simple, Kat cracked, would Nicole then work things out with Ted? If not, Nicole was hardly in a position to give her advice about Tomas, and at least Kat could still admit she loved her guy, unlike Nicole. Moments after Kat left, Ted surprised Nicole with his arrival, reporting on how he'd just had a talking to with Smitty about Martin. Nicole hoped that the Richardson Smiths could work things out. Ted hoped that the Richardsons could. He noted that he and Nicole were still married despite their impending divorce and suggested they go to Doug's memorial together, since they had spent so much time with the McBrides. Nicole was inclined to drive in with Ted, but had she already promised Carlton that he could take her? Chelsea entered Bill's office with a purse for Haley, but instead found Tomas. After the junior lawyer conveyed his relief at Chelsea's rescue, Chelsea called him an absolute jackass for sleeping with Eva of all people. Tomas maintained that he had thought he and Kat were over. He hadn't expected Kat to change her mind. Chelsea jeered that Tomas just hadn't expected Kat to walk in on him and Eva. Tomas tried to explain that Kat had ghosted him, and that he'd had no reason to think she wanted to continue seeing him. "Maybe you are," Chelsea sniffed when Tomas said he'd been feeling bad because Kat had deemed him bad in bed. Tomas didn't think Chelsea should be so judgmental when the parameters of her own relationships had been so unconventional. But when Tomas was certain that Kat hated him, Chelsea shrugged that the opposite was true. Kat still loved him. Though Tomas was thrilled, Chelsea clarified that Kat's profession may have only been uttered because she didn't want Eva to win. Tomas saw the statement as Chelsea's opinion. Chelsea warned him that reuniting with Kat wasn't going to be easy, and that Tomas was going to have to make the first move. "You hurt my cousin again, and you better duck when you see me comin'," Chelsea promised. Kat took a call from Tomas, who wanted to have lunch with her and talk. She hung up on Navarro and wailed to the arriving Chelsea that Tomas had had a lot of nerve to make such a request. Chelsea sheepishly divulged that she had told Tomas that Kat still loved him and wanted to be with him. Meanwhile, Eva thought back on her mother's words about fighting for Tomas and phoned him, asking to get together. Eva was hopeful when Tomas accepted.